and then you have to wait 90 days or 3 months to get paid. That's the reason why I never got my own authority. I don't know anything about that, and I'm glad I'm talking to you about it because it's very good insight. And as a matter of fact, I'm thinking about selling my truck because it's just, in my opinion, just not worth it.
Things like TruckCoinSwap in the US. It aims to solve liquidity problems that face truckers and logistics companies working in the spot market. According to the American Trucking Association, over 70% of all freight in the US is moved by truckers, and the spot part of the market is where freight providers are hired on an ad hoc basis to cope with unexpected increases in demand. TruckCoinSwap's Chief Commercial Officer, Philip Schum, told Forecast, quote, "The payment terms for truckers operating in this spot market are egregious and can take months to process. The project operates by using its native TCS token to power invoice settlements and help make payments faster." Dale Watkins of UIDA, a non-profit trucking advocate, reckons this could make a real difference.
Generally, factoring is a nightmare for everybody. And I think I've learned that, it's a good freight factoring company if somebody says they're not that bad, they're not that bad. And if that's the sign of approval, I think we have a problem. So invoice settlement is pretty much, as someone that was a former auditor of invoices, it's a nightmare. It's one of the worst problems in freight.
And we believe that the era of banks and intermediaries raking up to 90% of net revenue on every freight transaction has come to an end. So if you want stronger supply chains, or if you just want stronger carriers, or if you just want cheaper milk and eggs when you go to the grocery store, we'd ask that you join our supply chain to blockchain movement and join us at TruckCoinSwap.com.
So we did a $1,000 transaction, and Vinny was able to settle at a cost of $1.20, which is extremely efficient. There was no slippage on the sale. Vinny was able to get his TCS tokens and sell them directly into US dollar. Did you have any volatility or any risk while doing this transaction?
No, I have never done anything with coins in the past. I had a Coinbase account 3 years ago, and that was basically it as far as my expertise goes in crypto. But no, we processed on a Tuesday, and then I was able to get the money transferred and back into cash within 3 days. So, opposed to waiting 90 days or 4 days, is real simple.
It's life-changing. For a business, it's completely life-changing.
TCS, there are no sensors. You don't have to, you could just use the same smartphone you've been using. You don't need to get a new computer. It's not that's the thing. Some of this tech, electronic locks, another thing forced into existence. They're you have to have it. Oh, also you have to pay for it. Oh, also, you have to pay to have it installed, and it's forced on you. Whereas with TCS, there is no extra equipment you got to buy. It's not being forced by the government, and it's not going to require a monthly fee, because an electronic log is having another cell phone bill. It's just another operating expense on your sheet. This right here eliminates an operating expense. It eliminates your factoring fee. It eliminates possible broker fees depending on where the payment's coming from.
And what would $40,000 a year do for a company like Bulldog?
40 grand a year. That's enough for us to be able to get another truck and to fix it up. And we always have to have cash on the side for repairs. $40,000 of profits, is definitely going to help us.
That's pretty game changing because, not that just because there's so many carriers and drivers out there that are so hesitant to accept and, adapt new technology. So I think the fact that you guys have really lowered those barriers for them just to get involved, they might have to download another app, but they're not getting charged a monthly maintenance fee. It doesn't come with $1,000 a year subscription. It's just something nice and easy that it's literally just just try it. What's the worst that could happen? You get paid faster and you get paid more.
So the question in my mind isn't whether to adopt. The question for carriers is how long do they want to continue getting killed by factoring and inflation costs, especially in a soft market like this where the financial hardship is already very painful. We have this famous saying in the legal profession, right, that judges only want to hear from judges. I think it's the same in transportation, where truckers want to hear from truckers. And when other truckers start talking about the savings and the cost benefit and the value proposition, we think we're going to see widespread adoption. Good morning, everybody. You guys hear me okay? All right. Thank you for joining us today. We appreciate you being here. It's an honor to be an educational sponsor this year at MATS, and I want to thank Toby Young and the whole MATS team for their support and for the engagement. By cost percentage, banks and factoring companies are making more on trucking than truck drivers, operators, and brokers. TCS is not a factoring company. I want to repeat that again. We are not a factoring company. And actually, we're here today to help you recapture your revenue. Before we jump in, I also want to thank Dom for putting together this great video. For those of you who are just hearing about TCS, Dom operates a 17-truck fleet from a truck stop on the New Jersey Turnpike, and he's also pretty good at content creation. I also want to thank Mike Lombard of Lombard Trucking. For those of you who are not tuning in to Mike's podcast, you're not up to speed, so please do so. I'll also add that TruckCoinSwap started a podcast about 60 days ago. It's got some fantastic content on it, and it's available on all major podcast platforms. You just type in TruckCoinSwap, and you can pull it up. And a big thanks to all of you for your service to the U.S. supply chain, specifically during COVID. You guys saved a lot of American households and businesses, and that really goes understated, and it shouldn't. My name's Todd Ziegler. I'm the CEO of TruckCoinSwap. I've been working in the full truckload logistics industry for the better part of a decade. That's where I ran into this problem. I am not some bureaucrat here from Washington with new rules. I am not some techie here from Silicon Valley forcing new tech into your rigs at cost. In December, and we just heard a little bit about it from Vinny, in December, TruckCoinSwap was the first company in the world to settle a freight invoice on the blockchain. And we did that fast and free to our carrier, Bulldog Industrial. The carrier settled a $1,000 invoice instantly, got their cash in 4 days. TCS charged nothing for that transaction, and the exchange fee that we used to manage the transaction costs $1.01. So that represented for Vinny and Bulldog Industrial a 60% reduction in, well, I should say a 60x reduction in operating costs. It was really just a real honor to be the first mover in the space and the first company to accomplish that goal. The settlement was managed on a smartphone using the TCS mobile app. The smartphone app that we have created is identical to what banks and factoring companies are using now. I would just argue that there's better data and image capture. And if we can get the deck pulled up, guys, that would be wonderful. Are we up? Okay. Excellent. Okay, so there's the press release about the first ever blockchain transaction. And here is a quick look at the mobile app. All right, TruckCoinSwap has been featured on SiriusXM Road Dog and on scores of podcasts. In print, we have been featured in Yahoo Finance, FreightWaves, Forecast News, and Cointelegraph, and many other business and news publications. Some of our greatest advocates right now are your colleagues. They are truckers, small operators, and brokerage companies that are sick and tired of paying up to a 35% annualized interest rate to get an advance on their cash, to get an advance on their paycheck. No one else in America that I'm aware of pays a 35% interest rate to get an advance on their paycheck. Carriers, brokers, and operators shouldn't either. There are also folks who are just sick and tired of losing up to $30,000 a year in net revenue on every transaction. And you heard Vinny note, Vinny is a 2-truck operator in New Jersey. He's mostly in the business of moving pallets in the New York, New Jersey market. We crunched the numbers for Vinny. Most of his shippers are 90 days on pay terms. We figured we could save him about $20,000 in net revenue on each truck, so $40,000 a year in net, not gross revenue. And of course, we asked him what he would do with that, and he said, well, I would immediately buy another truck and grow my business by 33%. That's a great thing. Blockchain really is the force that can level the playing field in trade finance, and it's great to finally be seeing that in the transportation industry. It's also important to note that with TCS, there's no 25-page factoring agreement. There are no bullshit liens on your trucks, no personal guarantees, no UCC filings, no collateralization of your business or your personal assets. There's also no exclusivity provisions, no non-compete provisions. If you settle a load through the TCS mobile app and you don't see the immediate savings and value, you can go right back to your factor or right back to working directly with your shipper. You can settle one load with TCS, 100 loads, or every load moving forward. Our value proposition speaks for itself. We don't have to bind you in a 25-page draconian agreement. I know many of you, of course, are wondering how this works. And those are good questions. So I want to discuss it. If you don't hear anything else that I say today, I want you to hear this. The TCS settlement process, if you're factoring, the TCS settlement process is identical to what you're doing now on a smartphone. Once a load is delivered, the BOL and related docs are uploaded into the app. They're sent over to TruckCoinSwap in Wyoming. We are a Wyoming company. And that's what starts the settlement process. So if you've got and I should say that our settlement process means that we're swapping collection rights in a freight invoice for the current USD value of the TruckCoinSwap token, which if you have familiarity or some familiarity with blockchain and Web3 tech, it is a Polygon token. So this all operates on the Polygon network. And the way that I kind of like to describe it is the blockchain is the railroad, Polygon is the train, and our store of value, our digital asset, moves on that Polygon train. It's a good transportation analogy, I think. So if we go back to the $1,000 invoice that Vinny settled, if the token at the time is trading for about 10 cents, which is where it is right now, the carrier would get 10,000 TCS Polygon tokens deposited directly into a digital asset wallet at whatever exchange you're on. It could be Coinbase, it could be Crosstower, it could be Uniswap. From there, the carrier can immediately sell. We understand that you're not investing in digital assets. You're not investing in any type of crypto or coin. You're taking possession of the coin to immediately get back to US dollars, and that's what the platform facilitates. And we also want to settle these transactions when you're ready. A lot of people hear about slippage when it comes to digital assets. We don't want to settle a transaction when you just got behind the wheel and you've got 7 hours of driving to do. We want to settle that transaction when you're able to settle it. So you'll be notified in the app that the settlement is ready. When you're ready to take settlement, you can do that inside the app. And in the transaction that we did with Vinny, he took possession of our token and then sold it in about 5 minutes. So his exposure to the digital asset was for the tune of 5 minutes, and he immediately moved back to cash. But if you are familiar with the ecosystem or interested in the ecosystem, I think Bitcoin's up 35% in the last 60 days. If you want to transition your revenue into Bitcoin, or transition your revenue into a stable coin, at that point, the value of your invoice is on the blockchain. So if you don't want to go straight to cash, or you don't want to go 100% straight to cash, you don't have to. You now have some diversification options by virtue of your revenue being on the chain, as they like to say. The other thing is later this year, we are confident we're going to see crypto fuel cards. Okay, the large exchanges like Coinbase now have these debit and credit crypto cards that you can literally use like a debit card or a credit card and spend it anywhere. We believe that we're going to see that technology come into the transportation industry by the end of the year. And if you don't want to go through that extra step of selling digital assets on an exchange, we believe by the end of the year the tech will be there where you can literally spend them directly off of a card at a truck stop or any other retail location. And that will be a very big event when we get there. And I just want to reiterate again, once TCS tokens are sold, the USD equivalent of that sale will immediately show up in your exchange wallet. And if you really want to see the transaction in real time, we have a full demonstration with Vinny on our website. But literally when he hit sell, after he got his TCS tokens, the USD value immediately appeared in his exchange. It was an instantaneous settlement. And then it just took another 2 days for him to move the cash from the exchange to his business checking account. So really, our settlement process is instant, but it takes about 2 days for the exchanges to communicate with the banks and actually move that value into a business checking account. Again, the entire process takes 3 to 5 days, whereas most factoring companies are paying in 10 business days unless you do quick pay, which of course costs even more. And most settlement times are now being cut by 50%. But more importantly than anything, 99.9% of the fees that you would be paying to factor an invoice are recaptured and returned to you. So I also get a lot of questions about, people want to know why this is different from what they're doing now. And I always kind of like to reframe the question as, what are you doing now? In factoring today, you're paying a 25 to 35% annualized interest rate to finance your own paycheck and simultaneously collateralizing your name, your truck, and your business for hard money loans on payday loan terms. That's the current model. That's totally wrong. Okay, so we're not necessarily trying to make the current system a little better than it is. We're trying to replace the system whole cloth because it's only working for the banks and the factoring companies. It's not working for carriers. If these folks saw an advantage in returning revenue to their customers, they could have adopted this tech a year ago. They haven't, and they're not going to because it's exponentially profitable for them. And what do you get in the current model? Typically, you're waiting 10 business days to get a currency that's being inflated away by Washington to the tune of 6 to 12% a year. And how about customer service? When something goes wrong, is the service good? Have any of you ever run into anybody who would refer their factoring company to you who wasn't getting some type of kickback or referral fee for doing so? I've been in this industry for about 10 years. I haven't run into one person that has ever referred their factoring company to me. This is all to say that the current model is broken in favor of the banks and factoring companies, and if they can make $20 to $30,000 per year on all of your trucks, they're not going to change anything. We also get a ton of questions about adoption. And to put it bluntly, many people in venture capital and tech and finance have told us that truck drivers and operators and brokers just don't have the acumen to use this solution. I want to say that again. The people who control the banks and finance don't think the industry is sophisticated enough to use blockchain settlement. I don't know if that sounds right to you. It doesn't sound right to me. I was at dinner last night with a number of folks in the industry who, in terms of tech and blockchain, could run circles around the people in Silicon Valley. But guess which companies have recently launched access to digital assets and blockchain technology? You've heard of most of them. Fidelity, Prudential, Bank of New York Mellon, BlackRock, Deutsche Bank, Goldman Sachs, HSBC, and JP Morgan. But most of these platforms are not for you, and they're not for me. They're for accredited investors and institutional investors. Just last week, Microsoft very quietly announced it's building a crypto and digital asset wallet inside of its Microsoft Edge web browser. So can you imagine a world where you can swap an invoice immediately through the TCS app and then spend those tokens immediately at any company's website online? The tech is already there, and all of this stuff is coming at us very quickly. Right now, we are literally standing at the threshold of the internet age of money, and right here at Matt's with TCS, all of you have the opportunity to be some of the first beneficiaries and the first movers of the value proposition. And I will add too, this is this is a difficult period. Most of you know that. This is a very soft freight market. It's the softest market I've seen in about a decade. And a lot of the freight economists are saying that this market is going to be with us through 2025. So if reducing operating costs and mitigating fees is part of your business model, this is a good way to do that. And I'm certainly not going to tell you or go through like a P&L of operating a truck, because all of you can do that far better than I can. But I do want to quickly highlight this scenario. For a truck that's doing $5,000 a week in gross revenue, that's about $250,000 a year. That leaves about $40,000 in net, but $12,500 of that net is going to factoring at a 4% factoring charge with a 1% quick pay added on. So that is 32% of all net revenue getting eaten up in settlement costs. And all of that can be recaptured on a platform that offers fast pay, free settlement, recapture of net revenue, no truck liens, no business liens, no guarantees, no exclusivity. And again, you've got some diversification in how you're holding that revenue moving forward. We've got a pretty good sized team here at Matt's today. We'll be available like right off the stage if any of you want to talk to us directly. Specifically, if any of you would like to join Dom on the TruckCoinSwap podcast, we'd love to have you. We love talking about freight and tech. That's all we do. But we do have a couple minutes left in the presentation today, and I wanted to open that up to Q&A. If any of you have any specific questions that you would like to ask about the value proposition for the transportation industry or for carriers in particular, we'd be happy to take any and all questions. Thank you very much.
Good morning. So just wondering, so when you settle an invoice, I'm a carrier, by the way, so when you settle an invoice, who then owns that invoice? Do we maintain the risk of collection, and who presents the settlement to our customer? Right.
And the question was about settlement specifically, and how risk transfers and who's managing that transaction. Our model, again, is identical. Again, we're not a factoring company, but our model in terms of settlement is identical to factoring companies, okay? So collection and assignment rights, and that invoice is transferred through a industry standard notice of assignment, okay? The carrier is settled. The carrier is able to get their U.S. dollars, get their cash. TruckCoinSwap now has the obligation of collecting that cash from the shipper, okay? If there is an OS&D issue, if there is a claim, it would be handled identical to the way that a bank or a factoring company would handle it, okay? If it's a short pay situation where it's, the carrier has no fault, right? We're going to try to work that situation out on future invoices. But we don't want to be in the situation where we feel any kind of legal obligation to claw back or, try to enforce a lien on a truck. We don't need to do that. So again, it's really identical to the model today, but the way that you framed the question, some of the risk is mitigated.
Todd, thanks a lot for all this. Can you talk a little bit about, so what's in it for TruckCoinSwap? I know that's a question probably everybody has here, but I'll be the one to ask it.
Yeah, that we get the question a lot. How do you make money? And that's a good question. So the developers in Wyoming are much better at answering that question than I am. We're collecting a lot of rich data, and that data is valuable to other companies. It's monetizable. But I will tell you too, just based on our tokenomic model, there is some spread. Okay, there are some opportunities for TruckCoinSwap to collect some fees. Not fees from the carrier, right? And that's the real value proposition is we're not carving a pound of flesh out of the carrier, right? We're able to collect fees in other ways in that transaction. And that's how we ultimately, that's how we become profitable. And, we're also developing a lot of proprietary tech related to data image capture, digitization of freight documentation. So this is kind of this value proposition is available to the entire industry, but the way the way we make money is a little different from the banks and factoring companies, but it works for us, and we're able to provide that free settlement to carriers simultaneously. I think we got one
okay.
more
Maybe I wasn't
question.
talking loud enough. So I do have a lot of customers that are cash on delivery or paid within 24 hours for no fee. But like I was with like Thunder Funding before, where I go to turn in a bill. Now they want a chunk of everything. I can do one load or all my loads. I mean, there's no
exclusivity.
Okay.
And that's a big problem with the current model, right? Because a lot of carriers, they're factoring invoices, and all of a sudden they've got $150,000 on the line with the factoring company, right? And if you want out of the factoring company, you got to write a check for $150K, right? That's a problem for a carrier. You don't have that issue with TruckCoinSwap.
And they seem like the person you need to talk to is out of the office when you want to cancel them.
I've had a similar experience. Yeah. Good question. Any other questions? I'm sorry?
You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
if you held all of your invoices for that week and you didn't cash it out directly, like you were saying in your 3-day process, is there a chance that your coin loses all of its value? You know what I mean?
Right. That's a great question. The question's about volatility, right? And I want to reiterate, we've built the model in a way where a carrier only has to hold the token that they've settled in for 3 to 5 minutes. Okay? So if you want to hold it for a week, or let's say you want to keep 10% of that invoice in TCS token, you could be subject to a capital gain. You could be subject to a capital loss. So we've built the model in a way where carriers and operators can immediately divest. But like I said, if they want to diversify into stable coins, which but for a few examples, remain pegged at $1 because they're backed by U.S. securities, or you want to diversify some of your revenue into Bitcoin or another digital asset, your revenue's now on the chain, you can do that. But the model is built in a way where you can get to cash immediately as soon as that cash transfers from the exchange wallet to your bank. Good question.
So recently, crypto has fallen under a little bit of scrutiny with FTX and stuff in the media recently, and I guess for people who are skeptical, what's kind of backing what's backing TCS? How do we know that it's not going to fail and we're not going to fall under what happened with the that gentleman Sam Friedman and the FTX, and how do we know that this isn't something offshore or something like that? What's backing this all up?
Sure, and the question is what is backing the transaction? What's creating stability in the transaction? That's kind of a deeper economic and regulatory question, but I'll try to answer it quickly. So a lot of folks are familiar with FTX. That was a fraud issue, right? That was like Bernie Madoff, Enron. That wasn't a problem that was created on the merits of a business doing things the right way, right? You had one business taking customer deposits, funneling them to effectively a hedge fund, and then the hedge fund was losing money, right? So I do want to make sure that we differentiate that issue. And from a regulatory perspective, and this is kind of a deeper layer of the onion, but our token is a non-security digital asset, right? So we're outside of the security token space. But TCS is only working with strong compliant exchanges, okay, that are in the U.S., that are U.S.-based. Coinbase, for example, is a publicly traded company. And again, the model is built in a way where if you don't feel comfortable holding, TCS token, or you don't feel comfortable moving from our token into Bitcoin or Ethereum or a stable coin, then immediately go to cash. You can go to cash in 3 to 5 minutes. You make that transfer to your bank, you're on to your next load. So I hope that answered the question. We are out of time, but again, our team is here. We're going to be off to the side. If you have any additional questions, please feel free to track us down. And thank you all so much.